I don't know if you can hear me or not.
That's your name?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
All right,
Um,
perfect.
you can hear me, you can see, everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's great. Well, number one, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, this is great. I'm happy that you're here. Um, all right. So how do we do this? This is pretty just off the, well, here, I'll start with we met on Reddit. The name of the Reddit channel isn't it just Astral Projection?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yep. Astral Projection. I asked if anybody wanted to come on the show and talk about their projections, and luckily, AKA also known as Forbidden Snackie on Reddit, if you have any questions for her or anything like that when it comes to AP, um, went ahead and responded, and now we're here. So now we're just going to have a nice conversation about her astral projection abilities, strategies, her experiences. Um, and yeah, is there anything I
Hmm.
missed or anything you want to say before we start?
Um, oh, I guess that covers everything. I do have preferred pronouns. I use they, them.
Okay.
But I know that's not a big part of my profile or anything I do with astral projection. So don't worry if you mess it up.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I do, but I will definitely do my best. Um, all right. So
Hmm.
how long have you been well, how old are you, if you don't
Hmm.
mind? And how long have you been astral projecting for?
So I'm 26 right now, and I think I've more or less been attempting astral projection since I was 19. That's when I started.
Okay. Very cool. So you started in 19 and you said you're 26. So you've been
Hmm.
doing it for a while then. Um,
Yeah, every time I think about the gap, I'm like, oh my gosh, has it been like basically like 7 or 8 or 7 years? It's just crazy to think about.
yeah. Has it gone by fast for you or slow or whatever?
In a way, it is really fast. I'd say, at least in my experience with astral projection, when you go into like the astral projecting state, um, memories of other times you're in that state are easy to remember. But then when you come back down from it, it can be a little harder to recall what happens. But that leads to this weird kind of warping in your own senses where when you're in the astral projection state, it all feels like it's happening almost continuously. Whereas like when you come back down, then you're like, oh, I know I did these things, but they feel like they're outside of my timeline somehow. And I've had many wonky experiences with time while astral projecting, so it's very interesting.
So how do you know, is it possible to know if you are in the exact timeline of your physical body? Or is that or could you be in like one that's very closely parallel, or does that not make sense at all?
That actually makes a lot of sense. I know that when I was first learning to astral project and I was kind of navigating, sensing these things and being made out of energy and trying to kind of wrap my head around it, I met, I think it was an ET that explained it to me because I was asking and I was like, well, there's like negative beings and then there's like ghosts and then there's apparently you guys, aliens. I'm like, like how do I even begin to navigate all this stuff? And the being kind of laughed, and the being was like, well, you still think this is just one continuous place, but the being was like, you have to think of the state you're experiencing as like pages of a book, because the being was like, depending on what vibration your energy body is sitting at and what vibration your brain is attuning that energy body to, you're going to be experiencing a different slice of this place that you call astral projection. And I was like, wait, what? And the being is like, and you're going to perceive different beings or not, depending on if your vibration can even interact with them. And that's when I started to develop this sense of like raising and lowering energy to perceive kind of like these different slices of this energetic reality. Um, and that's helped me navigate some of it. But I notice a lot that when I am going in between those states, the way that I can perceive my own body changes. So I do think there's like some kind of multiverse state or some kind of parallel reality state going on because there's so much overlap in how perspective changes when you attune to different energies.
When you say you see your body change, is that right? What you said? You see your
Yeah,
body change based on
yeah,
your yeah.
energetic state.
So meaning like you look down at your body or something like that and you see
Mhm.
what, like a different version of you, or like what exactly changes, if that makes sense.
For me, in that instance, I mean that like different aspects of my body become visible. So like if I look at my body in like a normal astral projecting state, I might see this big bright aura. But then if I like lower my energy, I might start to see like the chakras in my body get very bright and very vibrant. Then if I go lower, I might start to see like the electrical signals going through my body and that being very bright and noticeable. So in that
Wow.
sense, going through these different like I guess planes of energy kind of like highlights different slices of my own body too. Other than that, like I would say like navigating adjacent realities is something I haven't really tried much. I've been told, because I've met so many aliens astral projecting, I've been told that humans can kind of learn to do that and we can kind of perceive these alternate realities. But that is apparently very hard for us to like mentally sort that information, that it's kind of overwhelming.
Almost like we as humans need to evolve a little bit more before we're able to gain that skill or have the
Oh, yeah.
capacity to even do that? Or do you think it's something that you sound very experienced, very, you
Thank you.
sound like you've been around the block. You've had so many
Mm,
experiences. So like, do you feel like you could possibly in this lifetime
mm,
learn how to
mm.
do that?
I think so. I'd say that as far as like trying to test and learn that skill, I think I made a fair bit of progress. Because I had an ET years ago tell me that as far as understanding or noticeable details of moving between realities, a big indicator, at least in our society, is Mandela effects. I was so shocked when the being told me that. I was like, wait,
Wow.
this internet theory online is like a real thing. And the being is like, well, when you move between realities, the details changes. And humans notice that. He was just like, humans just don't understand what that is. What that's a sign of. Um, so in that sense, oh, go ahead.
Do we, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do we,
Mm,
this is just a little, just like Nick question I have. It's not even
mm,
really, is it astral projection related? Sort of. But could
mm,
we, as physical beings,
mm,
based on our energetic, no, that doesn't make sense. I was going to say based on our
mm,
energy or whatever, or
mm,
our vibration,
mm,
can we phase into a new reality still in the physical, but it happens so like subtly?
mm,
Is that
mm,
even a word? But does it happen like so like I don't know, just
mm.
gently that we don't realize it?
Notice.
Or is
See,
that
and
just completely off the wall?
I'm really happy that you asked this question because that was part of the conversation I had when the ET brought up the Mandela effect. Because I was actually asking the ET about time. I was like, because I this was an ET I'd met before, and he was constantly telling me, he was like, "Oh, Snacky, like we perceive the future constantly. That's very hard for humans to understand what we mean when we say that." I'm like, "Can you please like explain that?" I'm like, "I want to explain to humans how this works, and that doesn't make sense to me." So the being kind of showed me all these images and started this long explanation. And what he said is basically that every form of life, every form of consciousness is kind of existing in this very large overlapping reality where several like nearby realities happen in the same space. So he was saying that for every one person, there's like a multiverse of this person, and they're like really close to each other. We just don't perceive that. And so he was saying that in relation to time, as time is passing, time is flowing for all of these multiverses, but time, in the way that it is fluid, it kind of flows into these multiverses and causes effects between them. So time kind of interconnects these realities. And so the being was explaining that they're precognitive, and because they're precognitive, they see the future very clearly. They navigate the future before it happens. But he was explaining that this sense of precognition extends into the present and the past. So he was explaining to me, he was like, well, Snacky, we see the parallel presence too. and we see the parallel paths too. And I'm like, how the fuck can you see that? And he was like, well, when you kind of evolve into this state of being and you become an advanced civilization, like this is something that's useful, so you kind of start selecting for this trade. I was like, you don't have to get into it. But he kind of explained that for beings like him and, the kind of advanced civilization framework, um, becoming able to sense kind of this multiverse of existence happening all around you, even as you live in like, oh, a singular physical reality is normal, is
Oh,
something that becomes normal. And so he was saying that for individuals like him, they perceive multiple parallel presents, multiple parallel futures, multiple present or parallel pasts, and they navigate between them. He told me, he was like, I can sense parallel presents where I can see differences, which is the Mandela effect. And he's like, and I can move between them by changing my actions. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And so he explained that for every version of us that exists, it's kind of like a slightly different frequency. And he was saying that the way our consciousness works is that we have like technically many multiverse bodies, and our consciousness is a tuning fork. So when we change the tune of our consciousness, it moves into one of those parallel bodies. And he explained to me that if
wow.
like a bunch of versions of you kind of attune to the same frequency, all of those multiverses of you collapse into the one that resonates with that. So like you can have
Wow.
like 10 different versions of you, and if you all resonate with like the same future path or the same present path, all of your consciousness will collapse into that path and you'll be experiencing that one. And they'll all
Wow.
migrate from the parallel ones, which is like crazy to think about. So he was saying, he was like, so that's something that they do. That's something they understand how to do. And I was like, okay, but what about humans? Because we don't understand any of this shit. Um, and so he explained that humans do it unconsciously. He said that simpler forms of life navigate the multiverse, basically, of existence unconsciously. He says it's not something that we process, it's not something that we feel, it's something that we intuitively navigate. Because he told me that, let me catch my breath for a second because this is a lot. Whew.
Oh, yeah.
He told me that all forms of life have some form of intuition. And so in multiverses where survival is not guaranteed, life navigates to the multiverses where their survival is more likely. So he's like, that's the same thing for humans. Humans unconsciously navigate to parallel presents and futures where their success, their survivability is higher. And so I was like, okay, um, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that information. I'm like, can I teach humans how to do this? Like this sounds like it could be a good skill. And he's like, humans kind of struggle to process all the information, that comes with actually sensing these things. But he did explain that that by kind of, I would say it was a form of cognitive behavioral therapy, by kind of learning to consciously curate your thoughts and to consciously curate your intentions, what you want in life, what you think about in a more consistent and a more controlled way, that's basically the tuning he was talking about. And so if you can choose and learn to do that, even if you can't sense the nearby multiverse versions of you, you will move into those basically adjacent realities where you're already in that energy all the time. And so in that sense, there is a multiverse, and apparently we move through it all the time, and we will continue to move through it. Because he told me that human beings, even now, we kind of skip in between these adjacent multiverses all the time, that we're not technically static much. He said that really what makes difference between a human that moves a lot and a human that moves a little is just how often they change. Because like one
Hmm.
multiverse is like one frequency, and one multiverse is like another frequency.
That makes
So
sense.
it was super interesting, and yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
blew my
is,
mind when I
it's
figured it
blowing
out.
my mind. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing, Demetrius.
I know.
I love how the alien calls you Snacky. That's amazing.
Well, I
Well,
mean that's my my Reddit name, so I use that when I'm recounting stuff.
oh, so
Mhm.
the alien didn't actually call you Snacky?
Yeah, it's aliens have like this telepathic thing. Apparently it's the way that telepathy works. Between telepathic creatures like ETs, they don't really need names, they don't really have names. So when
Okay.
they're calling to someone, what they're like literally saying is like your brain frequency. So they're
Oh,
like, that brain, or that brain, look over here.
yeah.
But then in telepathy, it gets translated into your name. So they were like saying
Oh,
my name, but what they were literally saying was like your brain energy. I'm telling you this.
uh-huh. And then it automatically gets translated into basically what makes sense to you, which would be Snacky.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
I
So I want to ask
telepathy is
you,
a lot of fun. Go
oh,
ahead.
yeah, do you think we can learn how to be telepathic here on Earth as humans? Do you think we can
Oh
evolve
yeah.
and do that?
Um, I I think that it's very possible. In some ways I've tried to be telepathic with people. Um, it's kind of a give and take though, because the more that you sense from other people, the more you kind of know things that you don't want to know about people. Like
Huh.
I had instances as a kid where I could kind of become telepathic for like short periods of time. And it was actually overwhelming and kind of terrifying as a kid because I didn't like how full of shit adults were.
So did you have to do anything to get into that state?
As a kid, no, it was kind of on and off. And me and being an experiencer, even though I also astral project, in being an experiencer, I dealt with ETs physically as a child, and that I think influenced kind of like the psychic states that my mind would go in between. But as an adult, in some of the experiments I've tried with other people, nothing like formal in a laboratory. Just I'm going to try to mentally ping you. Tell me if you sense anything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't had much success other than like passively sensing states in people. I've been able to open my mind to sense kind of like the emotional states in people, and sometimes like surface thoughts, not exactly what they're thinking about, but what it relates to. And that's kind of as far as I want to go with it, honestly, because when I've telepathically connected with ETs, when they connect to me, it's like 4K HD, like everything is there built in. But when they tell me how they experience me, it's kind of, they say it's like comparable to like an old radio or like a downgraded TV. And they say that's because it's the quality of my brain, not anything that's my fault, but that they say that the amount of information that I broadcast to them and the thinking speed that I have is lower because my brain only has so much hardware, and theirs is like super high fidelity HD because they've got all this extra hardware going on. But
Oh,
the I've heard from ETs and I've experienced this with animals. Telepathy is kind of innate in the sense that even if humans don't know how to tap into it or we don't utilize it, it's kind of built in. I've had telepathic interactions with my pets, not to the point where I can just tell them to do something and they'll listen to me. But I've had telepathic moments where I can tell they're in pain, or I can tell they're worried, or I can tell like they're hungry. Um, so in that sense, I think that like as a low level skill, it's completely accessible to everyone. And that like as the higher level direct communication, that kind of thing, it's I wouldn't be surprised if it only takes like maybe 6 months to a year of practice under the right conditions. Because it seems to me it's just kind of like a muscle to be trained. And in that sense, when I was first also projecting and I started meeting ETs, my telepathy was even worse. Like I'd have moments where I couldn't hear what they were saying, or I would get images, but I wouldn't get any concepts. Like there would be like parts missing. So there was a learning curve to even adjusting to their energy for telepathy to fully understand what they were saying. Um, but yeah, I think it's totally feasible. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about the telepathy tapes or anything, but you've got people who have been nonverbal their whole life, basically psychically attuning to their caregivers to communicate with them.
wow. Yeah, I haven't heard of the telepathy tapes specifically, but I have heard of
Mm.
stories where people know how to do it, and I totally believe there are people that know how to do it, and I think we can. I also think we can learn how to do that, and I think we will in the future for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um,
The only disclaimer I have about telepathy is that when you're connecting with a being who is telepathic, um it's a lot more vulnerable than you think it would be to open the connection telepathically. Because when you kind of reach the moment where your minds are opening for telepathy, um a being that's already psychic sees a lot more about you than you realize. Like
oh,
when I met ETs in the beginning of astral projecting, one of the first things they would tell me is they're like, "Oh my goodness, you've lived a very difficult life. I acknowledge you. That's a lot." And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I didn't tell you anything. And it's because like very psychic beings, they get like impressions of your past. They get impressions of like the highs and lows in your life. They get impressions of traumatic event, all in that moment of connecting telepathically. So I imagine that even with a human being or between two human beings without much skill, you would get similar fragments of like this intensity of experience.
okay, yeah, wow. So yeah, so you're not very interested because of You like when you said earlier in
Hmm.
life, you when it would happen, it when you would read the thoughts of adults or whatever, it
Hmm.
what you there was just a bunch of bull crap in there, like it just was a bunch of junk going on, and you were like, I don't even want to listen to any of this or read any of
Kind
this,
of, yeah. Like
or like
uh,
overload.
some of the earliest impressions I remember getting from adults is that they would be talking to me and they would be like, you need to do this, you need to do that, like you need to respect your elders, and I'd be looking at them and I'd see on their face, they have serious look on their face. They're using the lecturing voice tone. And so I'd kind of like push my awareness out of my mind towards them. And then I would feel, oh my God, this kid is so fucking annoying. Why is it looking at me like that? I don't like this. Why do I have to tell this kid this? They should know this already. Um, so like that wasn't like a good feeling at all. I was
Right.
like,
No.
okay, like I don't
You're like, I
understand why
don't
you have
want to
to lie
talk
to
to
me.
you. Yeah. That's crazy.
In that
So,
sense, I preferred other kids because kids would be honest. If they hated me, they would say it.
yeah, yeah, look at that. See, the adults need to learn from kids on that level.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, to not to try to go back too far, but you're saying I need to get better at this as a host or interviewer, but
No, take your time.
um you have so many good things you're saying, like this is all quality stuff, and I should probably just go with the flow and keep going. But you were saying a bit ago
Mhm.
about energy and being able to raise and lower your energy at will
Yes.
in
Yes.
the astral. Is that
Yes.
something, what does that look like for you? How do you do that?
Well, the way that I can best describe it, because the first astral projection experience I had, I was actually trying to hail aliens.
To what
I
aliens?
to hail aliens. I had watched a video, and in the video they were like, if you think this phrase 3 times and you think it in a broadcasting way, is like ETs will respond to you telepathically. And I was like, all right, bet. At 19, I wanted to leave Earth, so I was like, if I can hail aliens, I can get off this rock and I can start living a real life somewhere. So I tried that, and I got a response.
Oh,
It came through like static. So I heard this voice with static, and the voice was like, we hear you, are you there? And I was terrified. Like immediately I tried to like close my mind off. I was like, oh my God, there's something out there. Oh shit. I was
wow.
like, close the connection. Didn't know what to do. I think it was like a day or two later that I tried again. So I thought the phrase again, which ironically the phrase was Ashtar command. I'd watched like a kind of silly looking video where they're like, if you think the phrase Ashtar command with love and broadcast it out to the universe, they will hear you and respond. So I thought the phrase 3 times, and I did the visualization of making that phrase kind of reverberate out into space. And I got the same thing again. I was like, oh, hello, like we hear you, like we can tell you're on the surface of the planet, what's up? And I was like so nervous, so scared. I was like, I need to leave. And they were like, what? And I was like, I need to get off this planet. And they were like, oh, oh no. And I was like, please, you need to take me off this planet. And they're like, we can't do that. It's like, no, please, I don't want to be here anymore. It sucks here. Everything sucks here. Literally the first astral projection I had started as me complaining to aliens. Which the irony of that, man, I don't know if anyone's ever had to deal with that. They were very patient aliens. Otherwise, I think they would have been like, you need to like I don't know, get over yourself. So I was complaining to them, and they're like, "Hey, it's okay, it's okay. Just tell us what's going on. Like, like we hear you, like we're telepathically connected to you. Like, why do you feel that you need to leave the Earth?" And I was like, "Well, like everything sucks here, and humans are so mean to each other, and they don't even think you're real. They don't even think telepathy is real." And I'm like, and I just want to be somewhere where I can be myself, and it's clearly not here. And they were trying to talk to me and communicate with me, and I had a sense that there was like one being speaking to me, but somehow that there were two others that were also hearing this.
Okay.
So I heard the voice say, the voice was like, "Well, hey, like I can tell that you're kind of struggling to hear us, like you're getting static or whatever." They're like, "We hear you fine though. Can we do something to make the connection better?" And I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead." And so what happened next is pretty crazy. I was sitting in my chair kind of in a meditative state at my computer as I'm like thinking about this voice, wondering what they're gonna do. Now, granted, I didn't see this. It was this weird thing where it was kind of my mind's eye overlaid from my vision. But in my mind's eye, I see this portal open, kind of above in front of me. And I see this being kind of look through this portal. And on the other side, there appears to be a ship of some kind. And the being, I hear the voice still, that I hear the being, and it's now originating from this point I see. And the being is like, okay, I'm going to do this to strengthen the connection now. Don't freak out. And I was like, okay. So I see the being lean through this portal into where I'm sitting above me in this like energy form, reach down to my shoulders and start pulling gently. And I was like, oh, I don't know what this is. And so the being keeps pulling gently, and I start to feel kind of like my awareness splitting into two. So I still have my view of sitting in the chair, of seeing this being pulling me, but now I'm also seeing this being holding on to my shoulders, retreating back into this portal with me. And so all of a sudden, the slow pulling kind of accelerates, like there was some kind of split. And then my awareness completely splits into two. And so I'm still sitting in the chair, still, in this meditative state, still wondering what the hell's going on, seeing this weird portal. But now another part of me is with the being through the portal on the ship. And so I'm on the floor in the
Wow.
ship and I'm looking at the being. And these are like these two point of views that I can now see. And that was my first astral projection experience.
Well, so your astral projection body was on the ship with them, and your
Yes.
physical was back there still. And wow,
Yes.
what an amazing experience to be your first.
Oh yeah, I was so confused. I kind of like flopped on the floor and I had this feeling that I was like freaking out like a fish would freak out outside of water. The beings were just kind of watching me with a little bit of concern. They were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I don't know. What is this?" And they were like, "Can you hear us better now?" And I could. Like all of a
Yeah.
sudden most of the static was gone and I could hear them a lot better.
Wow.
And yeah.
So then did they
Mhm.
counsel you more there
Yes.
for like the
Yes,
rest of
they
the session?
basically, I think we spoke for like 15, 20 minutes, and I started to perceive them better too. I thought that they kind of looked like the stereotypical, like blonde Norse kind of looking alien. And
Oh
then when I
yeah.
got there, I realized they did look a lot like that, but there were some differences. They were a little short, I think.
Oh, they were
They were
sh
all really nice. They were
short
about
like
human height,
oh yeah.
but they were shorter than like people say they can be. At least the Norse looking ETs. They're like, oh, they're usually really tall. I was like, these
Yeah,
ones
that's
were
what I heard
not super
too.
tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were very sweet beings. They looked superhuman. And I was talking to them. I was like, look, I just really gotta get off this planet. Like, I can't find like what to do. I don't have any direction in my life. And I was like, and I understand this, whatever this is, so much better. I'm like, can't you just take me with you? Funniest
Yeah.
thing they told me, they were like, look, Earth is your native habitat. We can't take you away from your native habitat. That's unethical. I was like, damn it,
Oh.
no.
You're
But they
like,
did
that's
console
exactly
me a
why I
lot.
want to be with you guys. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, you're
I
like,
was like,
oh
I
man.
hate this habitat. Like, come on now.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay. Well, yeah, I was gonna
Yep.
ask you what about, what they look like and
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Wow, okay. So at that point, did you know that that
Mm.
was astral projection at that point?
No, I thought it was remote viewing because I knew that remote viewing was like seeing a remote object and like learning things about it and like some kind of psychic ability. And so I was like, oh, this must be like better remote viewing. And so I called it that for years until
Yeah.
I found out that astral projection was like a kind of overlap gray area, but where you're embodied instead of viewing from a like a remote angle.
Hmm.
So then I started calling it astral projection. But I did both in the beginning because after that experience, I was like, well, now I want to do it myself. So that took a little while. And so I was viewing things remotely and then managing to leave my body sometimes and then kind of doing a bit of both depending on the circumstances.
Oh, so it came pretty easy to you after you had that experience. You just practiced a few times and you were able to AP.
It did and it didn't. Like one thing that I noticed when I like ended that initial session with the beings is that my head was hurting in like this weird area of my brain.
Oh,
And so I kept trying to astral project on my own, couldn't really do it, but I was starting to be able to remote view in some ways with a good amount of fidelity. And so what I did in the beginning is I would try to astral project. If I couldn't do that, I'd try to ping something that was psychic enough to hear me, and then I'd ask them to help me kind
Hmm,
of get there and project a little better. And in the learning curve of doing that and all the weird headaches that came with that and getting more comfortable remote viewing, I slowly learned to be able to leave my body on my own.
nice. Awesome.
So I was pried out, I want to say at least 6 times.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Pride out. That's pretty good,
They were always
Demetrius.
so
Very
nice
good.
about it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, they can, as long as they're nice about it, they can
I
just
kind of look
pride
up
me
at
out
them and be
anytime.
like, I really want to talk to you, but it's really hard for me. Can you help me? And they'd be like, okay.
That's awesome. Wow. Well, they obviously they like you. Was it all the same? Was it the what are their name? The is that the
That
Pleiadians, the ones that are blonde and taller? Is that a
that's what people
description?
say. They told me they were like the Ashtar Command or something.
Okay. Okay, so
Um,
that's its own race of aliens. Ashtar.
I I don't remember everything they told me. They told me they were like a specific kind of like fleet from a specific planet and that they came
Okay.
over to kind of help other aliens organize everything here around Earth. Um, but they didn't, I don't remember if they said Pleiades or
But
not. It's
but
been a long time.
those are the ones that would pry you out every time, all 6 times, or was it different ones?
That's the thing, it was different ones. So I met
Oh,
them and they were very sweet. And then I met like a couple different kinds of gray looking beings that also pried me out a few times.
how
And
were
then I
they?
met
Were they
this.
nice?
They were nice, but depending on like the type of being I met, because there were the all these variations of gray looking beings, and that's something that I was really surprised to find out the more I asked the project. I kept meeting gray looking beings, and I'd be like, "Oh, hey, do you know this guy I met, or that guy I met, or this being I met?" They'd be like, "That's a different civilization. I don't know that
Oh,
person. I'm just
huh.
a different telepathic collective that is also, by your definition, gray looking." And so I met so many of them like that. I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like I'm being space racist. Please forgive me."
Space racist. Did you actually say that to them, or are you just messing around right
Well,
now?
the telepathic variation, at least the way it came out in my head, is like, oh, I'm being ignorant. I don't understand the nuances of intelligent life and space habitation. Because a lot of the gray looking beings I met would say that, oh, we look like this because we live in space. We don't live on a planet. Or we live on a planet, but we also live in space, and that has changed us. So I
Hmm.
would say, I'm so sorry. I don't know much about living in space. I'm from a small planet. It's an ignorant planet. Like, I'm very sorry. They could usually tell I didn't mean it badly. So they would just like
Yeah,
gently correct my ignorance. They'd be like, we don't all look like this.
yeah,
Traits vary, like there's just a kind of convergent evolution going on. I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
met all these gray looking beings. I know I met, what was it? I met a jellyfish looking being once. She was super cool. I
Oh,
met like this plasma
like
cloud being.
like
He was
like
super cool.
humanoid jellyfish kind of being, or just
No,
jellyfish,
actually.
just a
Like,
giant jellyfish.
I want to say she was like probably between 10 and 12 feet long.
Oh
Um,
wow.
well, probably a little bit wider than a human being would be. Like, I want to say maybe like 2 or 3 feet in diameter.
Oh wow.
Super telepathic. She piloted her own ship. It was just a ship full of water. Like it
Whoa.
was like an aquarium ship. So she was like intelligent, psychic, in the sense you would expect humanoid, but she looked like a jellyfish to me. So I was like, I
How did
guess when you're a underwater creature, you don't need to be humanoid shaped.
how did you meet her?
So I met her because this was during COVID. I was finding all these Discord communities to interact with people and talk about aliens. And so I met this guy and he was like, hey, he was like, you're an astral projector, right? And I'm like, at the time I was saying remote viewing. So I was like, yes, I'm this really good remote viewer. I speak with aliens. And he was like, I have an alien. He was like, why don't you try to meet her? And I was like, oh, okay. Because I kept meeting people who like were partnered up with aliens. So like maybe they couldn't remote view or maybe they couldn't do telepathy too well, but they had sensed an ET presence and they were able to somehow communicate with them. And so some people I met were like buddied up with an ET to teach people things or to share knowledge or to grow their consciousness. And so this guy was paired up with this jellyfish being he met. And he was like, I can't perceive her that well, but you can astral project. So why don't you try to see her and we'll see what happens? And I was like, well, okay. So he went into a meditative state to try to sense me meeting her. And I went into a meditative state so I could astral project and go meet her. And so
Are
I
you in
met
the
her and she,
same route? Are you
no,
in that guy in the same? You're not, but you just
no,
knew to do it around the same time with that kind
yep.
of intention.
Like I told him I'd try to go where he was to meet her.
Yeah.
Because he said that he could sense that she was near him sometimes. So she was astral projecting around him a lot. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to you and we'll see what happens. As though I saw her, I saw him. Now my astral projections, even though I meet people and I see things and I interact with things, visually I don't always have the most accurate picture. So I will admit that maybe there's a little bit of confusion on my end. But
But,
I interacted with her. We
but
had a whole
you are
conversation.
out of your
Mhm.
body and you can
Yes.
see around you.
Yes.
But you're saying sometimes that's a little like hazy or something, or
Yeah, in the sense that I feel like I get like a better fidelity around psychic beings, and I think that's because there's telepathy at play. Because telepathy, you can share senses. So I might see myself in an energy body from their eyes. Whereas, like when I'm trying to connect to a human being, I usually can see them, but it's more fuzzy. Like I might see their energy outline rather than seeing like exactly what shirt they're wearing or what color their hair is. So I saw him in like the energy sense, but then I was able to see her with this really good fidelity. And so I
gotcha.
interacted with her, and oh my gosh, my melding with her was crazy because I don't know why, but jellyfish have this completely different way of mapping space in their head. Like we look forward, we have left and right, we have up and down. They've got like 360 vision awareness,
Whoa.
where when they want to move somewhere, they move down. Whereas like we move forward, back, left, and right, they just move down. Like they just orient, they change what down is, and then they move down.
Oh,
So super cool.
yeah.
So I had this great conversation with her. She told me, about like wanting to meet humans, wanting to help with like global contact, and how this human that she had, they actually met before he was born, and there was like some kind of agreement there, and how they were friends before he became a human. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I'm like, I'm a
Yeah.
little bit jealous, but that's so cool. It's just like, don't be jealous. It's fine. And then this guy, this really surprised me. After that thing where I was like interacting with her, he's like, "Yo," he was like, "I saw your gray beings," and I was like, "What?" So while I was interacting with her, he could vaguely sense me and vaguely sense her, and he said that like a couple feet behind me, he saw three gray-looking beings watching. And he was like, "You told me that you had experiences with grays, and oh my God, I saw them." And I was like, I hadn't told him that. I had
Yeah.
like written that somewhere on the Discord. And I told him, I was like, look, I have some alien experiences. You might see an alien or two. I don't know. He saw them clearly. He saw three of them
Wow.
clearly. I was like, whoa, man. So it
Were
was a
they,
very
do
cool
you think they were
experience.
protecting you or they're like your guardians in any way or do you
That's
not,
what it
nothing
seemed to
like that?
be. Because he said that they were like, they stood in a way that seemed protective and that he made eye contact with one of them and that they were like giving off the vibes of if you do anything bad,
Yeah.
we're going to intervene. Um, but yeah,
Do you,
that was a surprise to me.
do you have a gu I hear of some people knowing their guardian angel or else their guide or whatever you want to call it.
Mm,
Do you ha have you had anyone like specifically,
mm.
like have you had an
Yeah.
interaction where they're like, yeah, we are your guide?
Yeah, I met a handful of Greys that are all from the same collective, and they're the beings that I met physically when I was young. And so there's one I call Dancing Square, and that's because he during COVID he appeared to me as like a DMT entity, and I was like, I don't know what to fucking call this thing, so I call him Dancing Square.
Dancing Square. That's a good one.
Um, there's another one whose name is Wildflower, and
Nice.
she's another gray being. And then I think there's one that I met. I know that we're friends, and I remember I was like, "Hey, man, you should take a human name because they don't really have names because they just say, hey, telepathic signature, like I'm talking to you." So I was like, "You should take a human name," and he's like, "Why should I take a human name?" I'm like, "Because then humans can talk to you." And he's like, okay." And he was like, "Can I look through what you know about humanity to figure out what my human name should be?" And I was like, "Okay." So I kind of let him like look through my brain a little bit, and I don't remember. It was like between two things. I think he picked the word Bentley, or it was like some other almost as technical word. He was like, "Okay, you can call me Bentley," and I was like the car, and he was like, "It's a beautiful machine." Okay, I was like, "Okay, okay." So
This
I've
is
met
great.
them, and I'm pretty familiar with them. And if that gives you any insight, yes, they're all kind of nerdy technical beings like that, where they like these like pinnacles of engineering that humans
Uh-huh.
sometimes display, and they love their symmetry and whatnot.
I love
Um,
hearing you describe all of this. You're really good at articulating all this and making it very entertaining at the same time. You could totally make like
mm.
a book or cartoon or something like that or movie about all
Oh,
of
thank
this, and it
you.
would be so good. Like you know what
Honestly,
I
I
mean?
might in the future. The only thing that I hear from people is they're like, Snack, you describe these beings with like so much nuance and blah blah blah. Some people, based on the beings I describe, they're like, I'm gonna try to telepathically connect to them. And they're like, Snacky, these beings are so boring. They're so serious. And I'm like, I never said they weren't serious. It's just I see the little itty bits where they're not serious, and for me, that's a big deal.
Yeah, there you go. You have that eye or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
so did you now
Mhm.
when you say you actually met them
Mhm.
or one specifically when you
Mhm.
were a kid, are you
Mhm.
talking about the t in the physical? Are you talking
Yes.
about the time? You're not talking about the time when he came out and
Mhm.
grabbed you from the shoulders and separated you.
Know that.
Th
No, no,
this
that
is
was
something.
like an energy experience.
So this is something. You're right, right. So do you mind talking about
Oh,
that
that's
physical
not at all.
interaction?
So like the gray collective that I know, they've been in and out of my life for years. And they admitted to me that actually before I was born, they were kind of like air quotes working with my family, end quotes, in the sense that they've been interacting with people in my genetic line before I was born, for various different things. So by the time that I rolled around and I was like a toddler, I honestly thought it was normal. Like I have memories of being like a toddler and it was the middle of the night. Like maybe my mom would like take me out of my crib or maybe I'd just kind of wake up because I'd hear a telepathic voice being like, wake up, we're gonna be there soon. And then it's a little bit foggy, but I remember through some way or another, me and my siblings and my parents would end up outside in some way. And then there'd usually be some kind of bright light or very rarely, occasionally, like the craft would be much closer to the ground, so we would just walk in. But more often than not, we were lifted in some way. And so then, as these events would progress, like I'd meet the aliens, like these tall grays, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, Snacky, it's good to see you again. We have some toys for you. Why don't you come along and play with the toys?" So I like in my toddler brain, I was like, "These are just my relatives that visit at night. Like they're just a little weird looking." And in this collective of tall grays, there's these shorter grays too. So I thought as a kid that the shorter grays were like children, right? So I was like, oh yeah, these are kids my age. It wasn't until I was a little bit older that, one of them kind of looked at me and they're like, Snaggy, we're not gonna get any bigger. Like we're not juvenile. And I was like, but you're small like me. And they're like, and we're gonna stay this size. I was like, so are you like not growing properly? Because I'm like, because there's humans that stay small too. And they're like, no, 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 no. They're like, we know that humans grow to a certain size and differences in size can indicate the age. They're like, that's not how it works for us small ones and those big ones. There's a distinct difference in how that works. So that took me a while. But yeah, like I was like super acclimated to them. Like I remember that I could communicate telepathically with these grays before I learned to speak. So in some ways they knew me better than my parents because I couldn't articulate everything that I was experiencing to my parents, but I could to these beings because they were
Wow.
telepathic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait,
Go
this
ahead.
is, oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt if you
Oh,
have something to say there.
so I had all these experiences. I remember like they would hold my hand and walk with me through all these ship hallways. I remember being mad at the kids I would meet sometimes because they would take me to rooms that had like play wall paintings on it, like with like the animals and the colorful and the trees. So I would go in there and there'd be all these kinds of toys. And there would be kids, air quotes, like me in the sense that I think they were known, but then there'd be weird looking kids, like kids that looked kind of gray, kind of human.
Oh,
And sometimes I'd get into fights with these kids, not because I hated them, but because they were like, uh, what's the word? They were only telepathic. So like where I would speak and some of the kids would speak, these kids were only telepathic. So like when I would talk to them, they would only reply in telepathy, and sometimes I would get overwhelmed by that. So
oh.
there was a whole nuance there too. But yeah, like
And
in that
what
sense,
age
hmm,
around are you describing right there? What age were
let
you?
me think. It's hard for me to remember the distinct ages of like when these memories occurred, but if I had to guess, I'd say I was somewhere between like I want to say like 4 and 6 years old.
I was okay,
So
gotcha.
pretty
I was
early. Yeah.
imagining something like that. So are your so then that's really
Hmm.
interesting, Demetrius. So your family
Hmm.
then, your
Hmm.
parents, your siblings, you guys all experienced this together, and this is
Oh yeah.
something that in the physical that you can just talk about nonchalantly.
Yeah, and in the beginning it wasn't really nonchalant because I go kind of like in this like how would you even call it like this two state of mind where when I was with them I was like, oh yeah, they're these weird people I know, we hang out at night, blah blah blah. And then when I'd go home and I'd wake up, I wouldn't remember anything. So it's kind of like I was living this double life for most of my childhood and most of my teenage years. And then like as I became this older teenager, and this was like right around the 19-year point, because this is when everything kind of came together for me. I was like, I feel like there's something really weird going on in my life. I feel like I've seen weird things at night and like there's not a normal explanation for that. So that's kind of when the border between what I was saying is the two lives I was living started to blur. And all these years later, like the border completely is kind of gone and I remember all these experiences overlapping now. But for my
Good for you.
family, for everyone else, unfortunately, that has not happened at all. So I'm very
Oh, so it's
down
harder.
low about it.
So
Yeah.
it's harder for you then to come out and talk to them because they're not on the same level as you as far as all of this goes at this point.
Yeah, and it's tough because I have brought it up to them a few times, where I'm like, "Hey, something weird happened last night," or "Hey, there's some weird things that have happened in the past, and I remember some of it. If you ever want to talk about it, but they really hate it when I bring it up. When I'm like, "Hey, do you
Huh.
remember the aliens?" They're like, "Fuck up," like they're like, "That wasn't real," and I'm like, "You think it wasn't real?"
Oh, that's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they've gone that route of just saying of denying it and then you've merged
I
it
went
all.
like the whole other way. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably been very liberating for you, has it not been?
It was super liberating. Right at the beginning, when I was 19, I was trying to figure out what to do. It was really difficult because I was like, so either I'm like in this weird delusional state of mind where I think something weird has been going on at night and these aliens have been around, or my entire family is super fucking delusional and like I'm beginning to see how deep it goes. So it was tough because in the whole, wealth of experiences that was these ET visiting my family, ETs visiting my family, um, there were a lot of good experiences. There were a lot of important experiences, even. So as I would remember this stuff, I remember things my siblings told me that I could not remember that they had said for years. But at the same time, like their refusal to kind of even consider that reality or the implications of that reality kind of made me realize that I'd have to go in this completely different life route from them. Because I'm like, y'all don't want to talk about telepathy. Y'all don't want to talk about remote viewing. Y'all don't want to talk about like chakras or auras or aliens. I'm going to go live this completely different reality now. And like, clearly I can't do it in your vicinity because you get upset about that. So it was tough, but it is very
Yeah.
liberating in this, years later state.
Yeah, that's uh kind of similar to well no, that's
Mm-hmm.
you're on another level what you had to do and I'm sure that was very yeah, and extremely challenging to go that route because in a
Mm-hmm.
way, I mean you're not leaving them behind, but in a way you kind of are
Yeah.
through your beliefs and your route and that you're going to take throughout life, but they're still there. But
Mm-hmm.
what I want to say though is as far as me, like with religion, a
Mm-hmm.
very religious family, and then I
Oh
kind of
no.
at some point had to, you know, break off and think for myself, kind of a thing, So I'm just kind
Yeah.
of just drawing the parallel there in some way, shape, or
Then you
form.
do relate, yeah.
But
It's tough, but
um, yeah, so
mhm,
that's super interesting. Um, are you?
mhm.
Yeah, so you've probably gone on. How many astral projections have you been on? How many experiences would you say you've
Honestly,
been on?
I couldn't tell you the full amount, because sometimes I do it when I'm bored, so the number is really freaking high. Like some of my astral projections are as simple as I will like step out of my body. I'll just fly up and go sit on a cloud and be chilling on the cloud. Just kind of meditate up there, do my own thing.
Oh,
I really like
nice.
doing that.
Oh, that's
I
got to feel so good.
It does, man. Like it's really nice. It's really peaceful. Sometimes I'll like astral project. over to an ocean, and then I'll just kind of dive into a really deep, quiet area and just sit there,
Oh,
feel like the currents kind of wash over me.
do you feel
I also love, oh,
energized?
go ahead.
Do you feel, sorry to interrupt you.
Mm.
Do you feel energized once you come back to your body after doing something like that, the cloud or the sea?
It kind of depends. Sometimes yes, other times no, and I think it has to do with my mental state. Like if I'm genuinely, entering the astral projection state in a way that is refreshing my mind, then I do come back feeling better. But if I kind of go because I'm feeling anxious and I'm trying to get away from what's stressing me, I'll feel good while I'm there. But then when I come back, I'm like, oh man, I got to do this thing again. I
Damn it.
will say though, that the gray beings I know, the ones that I've known my whole life, they've told me more than a few times. They're like, Snacky, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, you need to stop astral projecting so much. I'm like, you can't tell me what to do. This is my body, and they're like, not like that. You can totally do whatever you want to do. They're like, we're not trying to tell you what you can't do. They're like, but when you astral project, you weaken your immune system. And the more
Oh,
you
is
leave your
that
body, the
right?
more it happens. That's what they told me.
Oh,
I didn't believe them at first. I was like, that's just an excuse to make me astral project less. I'm like, you're just part of big psychic not wanting me to be super
big
psychic. Like in
psychic.
the beginning, I really thought they were like just pulling my leg. But I started to pay attention and they were right.
Huh. That's
Like
interesting.
what
Never heard that one before. That's
I
interesting.
don't know if it's like case specific or not because I
Yeah.
haven't asked them if that applies to all humans. But for me specifically, if I astral project a lot, there's a high likelihood I'll at least catch a cold or something.
Wow.
So the more I do it, the more I get a little more sick. That's not to say that I don't do it. It's just, maybe not all the
You
time.
just have to, yeah, you have to pump the brakes sometimes based on how you're
Hmm.
feeling, huh, in the
Yeah.
physical. So I didn't mean to interrupt you before, but you were talking about what you love
Mm.
doing, like the clouds and going into the water. And you were
Oh
about to say, I
yeah.
also love, you were going to say
Oh
something, but I
yeah.
interrupted you.
I love going to the moon and the sun, and so I've in some ways I've been pretty far out, at least as far as like Earth is concerned. I even found, and don't ask me how I found it because I don't exactly know. But one time, and this is the thing about astral projection, you can, at least in the way I experience it, you can like go towards a place. Like, let's say that you have an intention to go to space. So you leave your body and you kind of fly up towards space. And so you end up in space and you can look down at Earth. Or you can kind of like put an intention in your mind where you're like, I want to astral project to the nearest quiet place near me. And so then in that case, your astral body teleports to anywhere that kind of fits that criteria. So in that sense, a lot of times I may not fly exactly to an ocean. I'll just think nearby ocean, and then I'll like kind of pop into awareness above like a body of water, and I'll be like, okay, sweet.
Nice.
So I've done that a few times, and one time I did that, but my like coordinate idea was like I want to go somewhere relaxing because I kept going on clouds and I kept getting interrupted by ETs when I was trying to meditate. So I was like, I need to find some new place to chill. Um, so I was like, okay, coordinate somewhere relaxing. And so I see this like I see myself in space and I see like this world kind of beneath me. And it's beautiful. Like there's the sun shining on it. I can see all this vegetation on the surface. I'm like, oh hell yeah, that looks relaxing. So I kind of descend down to the surface. And as I kind of reach the grass and sit on the grass seems to bend around me, almost like it's like moving to accommodate me. And
Huh.
I'm like, well, I've never seen grass do that before, but cool, whatever. So I sit in the grass. It's very relaxing. I'm chilling. Um, I look over sideways because I sense telepathic activity, and like maybe like I want to say 100 yards away, maybe 200 yards away, I see what looks like ETs, maybe some form of gray. And there's like three of them, and they're kind of standing together, communicating with each other. They seem to be enjoying themselves, sitting, whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, chill spot. Even the ETs are ignoring me. All right, bet. So I'm like, I'm sitting down in the grass, and I'm looking up at this sky, which is like, I want to say a kind of like dusky orange reddish color. The sun is setting. Um, and as I look up at the sky, I see two eyes suddenly open from like the darkening sky of the stars. I see these two eyes open in front of the stars and they look down at me.
Just giant
Yeah,
eyes
just
or
giant eyes. Like they must have been, I don't know, 30 feet across. They look like human eyes, but they're eyes. And I'm like, well, that's never happened before. And so I'm like, well, this is probably fine. So I don't immediately do anything. But I start to feel that the gaze is intently watching me. And I'm like, okay, this is getting weird. So I kind of teleport to a nearby hill on this planet, and I kind of sit in the grass again, and the grass is that weird accommodating thing, and I'm like, this is still fine. So I sit in this hill, and as I look over at the ETs, because I haven't moved too far, I realize that there are two sets of eyes watching the ETs from the sky too, and I'm like, well, that's weird. And so I'm sitting back on this hill, and I feel like the hill changes its incline so I can sit on it more comfortably. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I'm like, but still comfortable, still comfortable.
Nice.
So I sit back, look at the sky, get the eyes reappear, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, if there's anything I know about consciousness, it's usually that eyes mean awareness. So I look at the eyes and I'm like, why are you watching me? And I get this telepathic reply from the sky. And the reply is, I like watching beings when they're relaxing. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, why do you look like a pair of giant eyes? And I get this telepathic reply. That must be what your mind is interpreting my awareness on you as. And I was like, oh, yeah, so the eyes aren't really there. They were a psychic interpretation of being watched. Because that's something about astral projection. It can be symbolic sometimes for new sensations. So I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, so are you watching those aliens over there too? And the eyes are like, yes, I am. And I was like, but where actually are you? And the being is like, I am all that you were perceiving. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
what? And the being is like, I'm all that you are sensing. And I was like, oh, so you're like the planet. I was like, how are you the planet? And the being is like, no, 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 no. The being is like, I am this reality that you are inside of. And you ended up here because you wanted to relax. And I like creating the circumstances for all kinds of beings to relax. And so the being is like, so I create all these circumstances and it draws beings here. And I love watching them. And I was like, so this is like an anthill type of scenario. And the being was like, not in like a bad way, but yes. And I was like, do you have like a name or something? And the being was like, you can give me a name if you want. And I had seen like the Doctor Strange movie a year prior. So I was like, I'm gonna call you Bro Mamu. And he was like, okay. So I met somehow this conscious dimension that makes all of these psychic kind of spaces for beings to go and relax. And it's super relaxing. Like, it's very nice. Uh, and
Wow.
it just watches you.
So
Yeah.
that's super interesting. So when you were first
Mm-hmm.
saying the being was like, I am everything,
Mm-hmm.
or that you're perceiving, first I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, is that God or something like that? Or, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to call it. But no,
Yeah.
you're saying that that being weirdly like picked up on your intention and then kind of
Yeah.
like brought you over into its little world, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
call it that, and took care
Mm-hmm.
of you and what you wanted. Is that more
Kind
accurate?
of. That is mostly accurate. I'd say the only thing, and he kind of communicated this to me, he doesn't technically invite anyone into like the interior of what he is, his reality. He just makes his reality completely inviting. And on a telepathic or on a psychic level, that's like an open door. So
Oh,
people pass through the door seeking a relaxing experience because he's creating a relaxing experience on the other end.
that's so nice.
I know. I
What,
like when
bro,
I
what's
met
the
him,
name? What's the name
Bro
that you give?
Mamu.
Bro
Yeah.
Mamu.
Yeah.
What a nice chill guy right there, huh?
Yeah, I was like, and the funny thing is, I say he, but he kind of gave off like this completely non-gendered feeling. I was like, dude, I'm gonna tell like all of humanity about you. Like, I'm gonna tell my whole planet about you. And he was like, I would love that. He was like, you're such a fascinating being. Like, you're all welcome here.
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of these days, once
Mm.
people are more evolved, you'll go on over
Oh, hell
there
yeah.
and there'll be like you'll have a whole party just kind of chilling, hanging out
Hell
in
yeah,
its world.
man.
I don't know,
It
something
blew my
like that.
mind, but it was like the best blown mind I've ever had.
That's cool. That's really cool. Um, so real, I guess I
Mm.
don't want to keep you forever because that's just
Mm.
annoying when I just like keep asking forever. But
Are you kidding me? I'm having fun.
oh yeah, me too.
Mm.
But
Mm.
before we hop into, I guess like just some experiences
Mm.
that you want to point out or that you want to, select and
Mm.
talk about.
Well,
But
there
before we get
was.
into
Oh, go
those,
ahead.
I want to ask you just really quick. You don't even have to go into big detail or anything, but like, what
Mm.
is your strategy for astral projecting? Is it deep breathing? Is it wake
Mm.
back to bed? Is it you just go to bed with the intention? Like, what is it for you?
So my technique for astral projection is that I I try to be comfortable. At least in the beginning, this is how it worked. I would sit somewhere or lie somewhere, and I would kind of clear my mind to the best of my ability because I've got like ADHD brain, so I've always got thoughts firing. But I try to calm thoughts, try to coalesce the thoughts, try to get some kind of peace going. And then I enter a meditative state. Now, I've reached this meditative state in the beginning with things like hemisync. So I would listen to a hemisync track, and at the peak of the track, I would feel this focus state kind of unfolding in my brain. Um, uh, some ETs I met in the beginning, I'd ask them, I'm like, how do I get better at maintaining this astral projection state? And they were like, well, and this is how I found hemisync because I was first listening to like meditation tracks and singing bowl tracks a little bit more. They were like, well, in order to maintain like this cohesive signal, to maintain like this psychic experience you're having, you need to synchronize your whole brain. And I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, human beings, the way that your brain works, it's designed not to be synchronized fully. They're like different areas are supposed to have different energy signatures in them. And the being was like, but if you get your whole brain to carry the same energetic kind of wavelength throughout it, and you can maintain that state, that gives you the focus and the psychic awareness to then kind of push your awareness outside of your body. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, why are humans desynced in the first place? And the being was like, well, that's because the human brain isn't designed to sense psychic reality. That's kind of overwhelming. It's a little bit of a safety. And I was like, oh, okay. So like it's built-in safety. And he was like, yeah. Um, so I kind of go into the state where I clear my mind, calm my thoughts, get kind of meditative, and then I kind of like cause that full brain synchronization. With a hemisync track, you can get to, I would want to say, like 90% of that. So you can have psychic experiences just from hemisync. But I'd say once you get in the practice of it, you can induce it without hemisync and you can kind of hold it at a better fidelity for longer. And that's what I would say is that last 10%.
Are you,
And so,
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it
Mhm.
sounds like binaural beats kind of, do they achieve
Yes.
bringing the brain together? Okay. And then also, are you imagining
Mhm.
something then when you're not listening to anything in order
Mhm.
to bring your mind together left and right? Are you
Honestly,
imagining something? Are you like, what are you
yeah.
doing
I
to try to?
usually imagine like a calm space and I kind of see myself sitting or lying there to kind of enhance the mental calm and the mental clarity. At that point, when I reach that synchronization and I'm in this like perfect state of focus, for me, it's just as easily as visualizing leaving my body, and then my awareness will split into like
Oh, nice.
vision of my body and then vision in my energy body. But in the very beginning, I noticed that that wouldn't quite work for me. And so, what I eventually learned to copy from the aliens is that when I would get into that focus state, I would kind of cause what I can only describe as a dissonant feeling, a very sharp, quick dissonant feeling. And somehow that would kind of push my astral body out enough. And then once
Oh,
that dissonant feeling had passed, then I could maintain like brain synchronization and then move my astral body and experience these things. But it required like a little bit of a jolt out in a sense.
I gotcha. That makes sense. Wow.
Yeah.
So you've become so experienced and so good at it at this point where you can just pop on out. Like
Drop of a hat, basically. Yeah.
that's
I could do
amazing.
it right now.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Do you
Yeah, I
understand?
and it
Well, I
surprises me
think I
that
think it's amazing. Do you think it's amazing?
I like my skill and I trained to get it to this point. But when I got on r/slash astral projection and I found out that most people were falling asleep to do it, I was very
Yeah.
surprised. I was like, don't any of y'all ever do it like on the bus because you're bored or when you're walking home from work? And they were like, how the fuck are you doing that? And I was like, I don't know.
You're,
It just works that way for me.
you're really, yeah, you're very talented. You obviously have a gift because if not everybody can do that.
That's fair. I want to say that I think that with enough practice, perhaps many people could reach that, but I also realize that not everyone wants to be like a super wizard at astral projection. That was something I really distinctly wanted. So that might be part of the reason why it's so easy for me now, because it wasn't easy in the beginning.
So are you attributing it more
Mm.
to tons of practice, or are you
Hmm.
attributing it more to you think it's more in your genetic line, or what do you, or a combination of
Hmm.
both?
I can't discount the genetic thing because the the psychic grays that I know very well, they've told me that they've changed genes in my family line through generations, and they've admitted that some of those genes relate to psychic abilities. But when I ask them, I'm like, okay, did you give me like your Jedi mind powers? They're like, no, we did not do that. You don't need like a frontal lobe the size of like a grapefruit. And I'm like, damn, okay. Um, so I can't discount that maybe they've given me something a little extra. But I know that when I first started when I was 19 and I was trying it out, maintaining the state necessary for astral projection was very difficult. Like I'd be able to do it for like maybe 10 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, and then I'd start getting like a splitting headache and I'd have to stop.
Hmm.
And so a lot of the learning and the practice that I did made it so that I can maintain that state for like honestly, if I needed to, probably an hour. The thing about
Wow.
telepathy is that it's such a fast communication method that when I go to like ETs to ask them a question or learn something, I don't need a whole hour. um, but the
Nice.
other thing was that streamlining the process to astral project also took a lot of time, and it seemed to be mentally exhausting in the beginning. So I feel like there was some kind of like mental exercise that I've trained up to the point where now it's like athletic reflex in a way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah.
Wow. Well, that's so cool, Demetrius. That's really cool to
I
hear. Good
will
for you.
say though that in the method that I learned it, I had side effects I did not expect. So like in that psychic experience where I was pulled from my body after that, I started feeling auras on everything, even when
Oh,
I wasn't astral projecting. And I would touch the aura and think it was the surface. So I had one night where I went to get a cup of water to drink,
oh,
a glass of water. I kept trying to set it on the table and it kept slipping through the table. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I turned on the light. I was trying to set the cup on the aura of the table, which was 2 inches off the surface.
did you drop it or were you holding on and you were like,
I
oh
kept
shoot.
trying to set it and then I would feel it fall, so I would like grab and lift again.
Okay,
And then when
good.
I saw, I was like, "Oh my God, it's the aura of the table." I set it down on the surface, and I was like, "I really got to get a handle on this." So I would like think I would bump into stuff, and I would look, and it would be my shoulder brushing the edge of the aura of something that I thought I was bumping into, and that still happens. So it gave me like this aura sense, and eventually I started seeing them too. So
Oh,
maybe a little disclaimer: if you're attempting this, you're
wow.
you're gonna get sensitive.
Yeah. Um, well, yeah, do you want to talk about a
Mm.
couple or something like that or however many?
Oh.
Really just, I don't know, some
Mm.
ones that stand out to you that you want to mention here?
Let's see. Well, I did love going to the moon. I've gone to the moon at least 4 times, might be closer to 10 though. Um,
Wow.
and this is the thing about astral projection. Even if you're not physically interacting with things, you can touch and learn their physical properties. So when I would go to the moon, I would touch the surface of the moon and I would get this feeling of like powdered sugar, like super fine dust. And I would
Huh.
love going to the moon and sitting on it because I'm like, even if I'm not displacing it, it feels so soft.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah. And the view of Earth from the moon is very beautiful. You can get some
Oh,
nice sunrises there. It's very bright, though. Turns out the atmosphere makes the sun dimmer.
oh
Like if you look
really?
directly at the sun, you're like, Jesus, the sun is so bright. Um, the only reason that I don't hang out on the moon too much is because there were a couple times I'd asked to project to the moon, sit on the side that was getting sunlight, be chilling, having fun, and then I would sense like a telepathic signature nearby. And I'd be like, are there beings nearby? And so I would look around, and there's a lot of underground bases of some kind on the moon because more often than not, I would follow what I was sensing was like the signature of some kind of intelligent life, and I would find like some kind of grace. There was one time that a being got mad at me because I sensed there was some kind of underground structure on the moon, and so I went to go explore it. And I peeked into this room, and it was like a room where the walls were lined with cribs. So it was almost like a what are those beds called? Bunk beds, but it
Yeah.
was like cribs. So it was like bunk bed cribs. And so the room, it was a small room, but it was like lined with cribs, like all up from the floor to the wall. And so I looked in there and I'm like, whoa, what is this? And I sense all these little babies. I'm like, oh, they feel so cute. And like in the center of the room, there was a being sitting, some kind of gray. And the gray looks at me, and I immediately get this sense of get out now. There was this female being, right? But she was like, you're not welcome here. And I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm sorry. So there were a couple times I
Wow.
got kicked out of bases. Yeah, they were like, "Get out," or "You don't belong here," or "You should not be here." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, okay." Um,
Wow. That's wait, so do they live the
mhm.
Greys on the moon then? Or are they all
Some
over the
type of
place?
gray. I don't know if it was like the gray collective I know because I didn't recognize her. But
Oh,
it
okay.
seems
So it
that
might not be
there's
the one you know.
some type of gray-looking alien definitely lives there because
Huh.
I've teleported to multiple different places on the moon's surface and multiple different underground bases there, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing here. I was just curious. I'm not trying to trespass in the way where you should be mad at me. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
So that's something that's happened quite a few times. I like going to the sun too. The sun is super gorgeous. I know you're thinking like Inferno Ball of Flame. Why would you go there?
Yeah.
But when you can't get burnt to a crisp, it's beautiful. Um, there's
Are
like this
is
gorgeous.
yeah,
Oh, go
are
ahead.
so it's a giant
Mm.
gas that you're just flying through, or and it feels really
It
nice,
has
or
a surface, at least to me,
oh,
in the sense that there's like this ocean of plasma that's like the outer surface of the sun. So I kind of dive into the plasma, and it's like
whoa.
a really violent ocean. Like there's huge currents flowing around. But then when you kind of get to the bottom of it, at least the way that I perceive it, it's like this crystalline landscape
Whoa.
where like these neon glowing, like emitting their own light, gigantic fucking crystals are like the entire floor. They're jutting out from the ground, like they're like it's a little bit smooth, but like not perfectly smooth. So you get like these growths coming out of this mostly bumpy surface. And the crystals are transparent, so you can look down through them and you can see like energy just flowing up from I don't know the center of the sun, I guess. And so I went there and I've
Wow.
actually picked up maybe the energy signature of one of these crystals in my hands, and it's like this intense but gorgeous energy. And I met a being there,
Huh.
because I the first time I went to the sun, I was like, I want to see if I can meet the sun, like if the sun can sense my psychic signature. So I go to the sun and I'm like trying to ping the sun. I'm like, sun, sun, like speak to me. Didn't get a ping back, but then I got a different ping. The ping was like, oh, hey, I'll talk to you on the sun's behalf. And I was like, okay. So I kind of I was on the sun in this astral projection, and I feel this some type of energy, this being approach me, and as it kind of materializes in front of me in its own energy body, it looks like a human being, but I get the sense that it's projecting an image of a human,
Oh yeah.
like this older human male or whatever, and I was like, I don't think that's what you look like. Can't you show me what you really look like? And
Oh, there you
the
go.
being is like, I'm trying to be considerate. And he was like, I don't know what you humans find easy to comprehend. He's like, I'm taking a form that you can comprehend easily. And I was like, well, okay, we'll stick with the human placeholder, I guess. And he was like, thank you. And I was like, so where's the sun? Why are you speaking for the sun? And he's like, look, it's not that the sun doesn't want to speak with you. It's that the sun's telepathic signature is so great that your mind can't comprehend it. He's like, in a sense, the sun has been trying to speak to you the whole time. Your brain just can't receive it. And I was like, oh, damn. I was like, I've got ant brain going on. And he was like, there's no shame in that. And I'm like, but I've got ant brain going on. Um, and I had a whole conversation with him because I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, which is a funny thing to ask the sun if you're an ant, but
Oh,
I thought maybe it was relevant. He gave me some really good advice. I don't remember everything we talked about, but I told him I was like, I wanted to ask the sun because the sun is like this, majestic super organism, breathing life into everything on Earth. And I was like, and I thought maybe like such a, majestic, powerful, kind of like generous being would possibly know what I could do in my life or maybe give me something to do. And
absolutely.
this being that was pretending to be an old man, he was like, well, I say he was pretending. He picked old man because he wanted to portray that he was ancient in some way. And older people are older to humans. So he told me that, that's admirable and that he understood why I went to the sun as it's kind of like, in a sense, the arbiter of our solar system, kind of in
Yeah.
charge. Um, but I remember he said something like that even though he respected that I wanted to do that and that, what's the word? And that he wouldn't dissuade me from trying to find a role to impose on myself, that he thought that what was it? That what I was already doing, even if it didn't feel concrete or direct or actionable, was already good, was already enough in my life. And I was like, it doesn't feel like enough. I don't feel happy. Like I'm not doing nearly what I want to be doing. And I didn't understand it until later, but he kind of explained that when you're pursuing something in your life, even if you don't have a clear image of what it is or a clear idea of what that life that you want is going to be, or even about how you'll get there, or what are all the details about how it will work, that as long as you're working towards that on some level, as long as you're keeping that as your goal, you'll end up there. And he was talking about manifesting, and I didn't realize it, which ties back to that whole multiverse thing. He was like, as long as you're moving towards it, you will get there. And I was like, but I'm not there, and I feel like I'm lost. And he's like, the fact that you feel like you're lost means that you're navigating, you know?
Yeah, true.
Um, so
Wow.
he was this really cool being. He gave me a name, or maybe I picked one for him. I just don't remember what it is because it was years ago. But I could still telepathically ping him because I remember that.
Wow. That's
But
amazing.
he,
Yeah.
yeah, he said he was kind of like a child of the sun or like a nephew of the sun. And I was like, wait, like, how does that work? And he was like, well, the sun kind of creates different kinds of beings. And he's like, and I'm big enough to communicate with the sun, but small enough to still communicate with you. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's kind of middleman situation going on. He was like, yeah,
Yeah, I was imagining like the sun broke off a piece of it in order to be able to communicate with you because
right.
otherwise, like you're saying, just like it's, I don't know, too much for your brain to uh comprehend or handle or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah, and I've met ETs that they weren't used to communicating with humans, so we would start with telepathy and they would start communicating so fast that I would get a headache. I'd be like, "Look,
Mm.
I'm sorry, but I have like baby brain. I need you to slow down."
And then they would slow it down for you
Yeah. Yeah,
instead.
they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." They'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You seem to catch it very well. I didn't realize it was like overriding your bandwidth." They were like, "I'll slow down for you."
Yeah.
Um, I'd
That
say the beings. Oh, go ahead.
inside the sun sounded
Hmm.
absolutely just like
Oh, it's so
amazing.
beautiful.
So are you saying there's like a
Mm.
crystalline neon structure or material like yeah, crystal material
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that the plasma surrounds?
Yes.
Is all around, and then
Yep.
you
And
can
it's like,
go on
I want to
into that,
say it's at least 200 feet of plasma above the kind of crystalline surface, but it could be higher.
and then
Because it's
you
like
can,
the plasma is almost the sky on the sun.
okay. Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
And
And
is
then, and that's
everything
not
like a
even,
red
go
orange?
ahead.
Is everything just basically like a
Kind
very red
of.
orange?
I would say that red orange is kind of how I understood it, but I saw that as energy kind of dissipated, it kind of went into like less strong colors. So if
Yeah.
I was looking up through the ocean, I would see like these red currents and these yellow currents kind of mixing and intermingling. And then when one of them would like arc away from the sun, it would kind of go into like these less energetic colors, kind of like into a paler yellow, maybe like a colder white.
Hmm.
Um, so in that sense, I think it wasn't necessarily that maybe the whole sun is like reddish yellow, but that's how I was interpreting like its baseline energy. And then
Wow.
above that plasma ocean, there's this calmer magnetic field. And I made a post where I talked about seeing the human idea, and that calmer magnetic layer is what I was sitting on, and there were like magnetic ripples that would flow through it. So it was kind of like if the plasma ocean was like this really strong undersea current that was going on constantly, then like that upper magnetic field layer I was on was like the calm surface of a pond above it.
Oh wow. That's
Yep.
amazing.
There's some really beautiful stuff about astral projecting. I will
Yeah.
say in comparison, I went to Jupiter because I wanted to learn more about its planetary surface, and that gave me a headache because it doesn't really have a planetary surface.
Oh no.
No. Some people had told me that because I'm trying to write a book that's set on Jupiter, like a little sci-fi fantasy. Um
Oh.
and people were like, "I don't think Jupiter has a surface." I'm like, "Well, in my story it does." And then I was like, "Wait, maybe I should actually check though." So I went to Jupiter to check and I'm like, "Oh my God, it doesn't have a surface." There is some form of life there, but it's very primitive and it's about the size of my foot.
Oh really?
Yeah. They're kind of like I want to say armored guinea pigs because they
Oh,
remind me of like those trilobites at the bottom of the ocean, but they give off this sense of being mammalian somehow. So I'm like, they must be like armored little mammals or something.
and they
And they like
they
burrow.
and they burrow and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And their intelligence, they can't, of course, they can't
No, they're a
telepathically
early form of
communicate.
life.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that'll evolve, uh, in however many billions of years, and you'll end up
It's
having way more
possible.
intelligent
Um,
life there?
they kind of live beneath, the best way I can describe it is some kind of silt ocean layer on Jupiter. Because there's like this a layer of loose particles that's kind of like a really thick sandstorm. And then below that, there's a much denser layer, which is dense enough for these beings to kind of dig into and dig out of. So it's almost like a solid, but it's not really solid. It's just very dense.
Oh,
Um, and so they kind of live in between those two layers. So I'm like, if they evolved into humanoid, it would probably be because they evolved bodies that can handle those forces in a much better way. Because it seems like the gravity is very intense in that spot, and I wonder if that's why they're so small. Like
oh,
if we put them on Earth, if they'd be much bigger because gravity isn't pushing on them.
oh,
Hmm.
yeah, that's interesting to think about.
Yep.
So did you change your, well, you were assuming that Jupiter was solid in your
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
Are you going to change
Yeah.
it, or what are you going to
I
do
am
about
gonna
that?
change it. I want it to be the true to life and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
um, I'm not gonna try to make like a big atlas of all of our planets and how I psychically interpret them. But in this novel that I'm writing, I want to keep things as accurate as I can sense them. And then if in 100 years we go to Jupiter and someone is like, "Yo, this old book is right," that would be a win for me. That would be
Oh yeah.
nice.
Yeah, definitely. Do you
Yeah.
want it?
Hmm.
What's your book about if you don't, unless you don't want to talk about it right now?
Oh, I'll only share a little bit. It's a sci-fi story of a character that's caught between two different cultures that's trying to find their place in the world, and it's set 500 years in the future, which is, I think, a good time for sci-fi to be set in.
Yeah.
I don't want to share too much because
Yeah.
I'm hoping to publish it
Oh yeah.
under my actual name and do things with that. But I'm trying to put all these things I learned from aliens about psychic abilities and all these other things into the book in a way that organically adds to the plot. Because I thought about writing like an actual novel about my experiences, whatever biography that would be called. Um, but I've been feeling that doing it in a creative sense um, is going to be a lot more accessible for people somehow. And so I'm doing that first.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the knowledge kind of comes through in a way you're teaching, even though it's totally fun for them to read it and be like
Exactly.
engrossed in your story. But they're actually, little do they know, they're actually learning how it
See,
really
yeah,
works out there.
like I would love it if me publishing like these novels about these far off fantasy stories or whatever teaches people what they need to know to astral project or teaches people what they need to know to start to learn telepathy, because there's we have these words that are the concepts of these abilities, but the actual knowledge of it is more nuanced than people think, like especially with like astral projection and remote viewing. A lot of people don't realize you need warts for that. That like you need an energetic way of basically kind of locking the door against negative influences. Like when I was first learning to astral project, I meet these cool aliens. I'd also meet like a bunch of asshole spirits who were wanting to mess with me and scare me. And I didn't know what to do until an ET was like, "Well, have you tried just telling reality not to let them around you anymore?" And I was like, "You can do that." And they were like, the being was like, humanity has this whole concept of spells that's just telling reality what to do and it working. And I was like, oh crap, okay. And then I kind of worked out a way of wording, and I made a little post about that too.
Oh, nice.
But there's nuance into psychic abilities and how they overlap with our physical reality and how we experience things. So in that sense, I do think in a what's the word? In a fictive sense, it's easier to convey because it's seamless instead of having to be like, well, this is what I experienced and this is what I think. You just merge the two together in this kind of creative space.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's really cool. Um, well, yeah, this is great.
Thank you.
what do you think?
Mm,
This is what I'm thinking. You tell me what you want to
mm,
do.
mm,
Maybe you give like one more cherry on top,
mm,
astral experience you had, story, whatever, and
mm.
then maybe we can have another meeting
Mm.
sometime in the future
Oh, hell
where
yeah.
maybe we talk more about it could be more structured if you wanted or whatever,
Mm.
or we could have something very similar and just kind of go off the cuff. But yeah, do you want to kind of
Hell
end like
yeah,
that?
man.
All
That
right.
sounds great.
Okay.
So, one of the most impactful experiences I had, and this was when I was learning astral projection very early on, when I was still having beings kind of give me training wheels by pulling me out so that I could do it myself. Um,
Prying you out, like you
I
said.
Yeah, I had had this experience where I went into a meditative state and I had listened to this track on YouTube to recall a past life. And in the process of recalling this past life, and this was when I was 19, I had this sensation of this kind of like portal opening above my head. And in the experience of all that, I met a presence that told me it was my higher self, which surprised me at the time. My higher self was like, "Oh, I don't have a gender. Like, you don't call me he or she because that's inaccurate." And that was before I knew I was trans, so it was like foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But um, there was a lot that was in that experience, and I can rehash all of that later. But after that experience, I actually remembered a lot about my past life. Had a very interesting conversation with this higher self of mine, and as the whole experience kind of dimmed and went away, I saw the portal kind of close up and kind of go back into this very small opening. And I was like, what the heck is that? Because I could kind of sense it even when I wasn't in that state. And that was when I was starting to learn about chakras because I looked it up online. I was like, third eye chakra. Because that's where I was getting those headaches when I was doing this astral projection stuff. I was like, is that the third eye? Is that what that means? Like, is there some kind of esoteric crossover going on? Um, and so I looked at the map of the chakras and I saw the crown chakra above that. And I was like, is that what that was? Did I see my crown chakra open? Is that how I connect to my higher self? And so I thought to myself, well, I astral project, and when I astral project, I'm kind of at my body's frequency, and that's an okay frequency, I guess. And I'm like, but what if I like astral project, and then I kind of tune my astral body to the crown chakra frequency? Like, what's going to happen then? So I tried that. So I go into my meditative state, my astral body steps out, and then I think about my crown chakra, and I kind of do this visualization to cause all this energy to flow through it into me, and that causes it to open. And so I'm kind of inducing more and more of this energy to flow into me, and it's kind of opening wider and wider. And the energy that I'm feeling is unconditional love. So as I
Nice.
realize that unconditional love is coming from this chakra point, I like open myself up to feel more and more and more of it, to kind of like feel this unconditional love for all of existence, to feel this great appreciation, this great recognition. And so I'm like suffused in all of this love, and I feel that it's like changing my astral body somehow. I feel my energy starting to shift. And so um I kind of I look at the chakra point that's open very wide with my astral body because I'm sitting. The chakra point is above my head, kind of like a ceiling light. And in my astral body, I'm kind of peeking up into it. And I'm
Oh,
like, okay, I'm going to go up this thing. And I had the sense that my higher self was up there. But I go up through this crown chakra opening. And instead of trying to find my higher self again, I'm like, I just want to experience the psychic reality in this state of unconditional love. So I'm passing through this portal and I can feel that my body is attuning to like this higher and higher and higher energy. And it's not exactly easy. It's a little bit difficult, but I'm going through it slowly. So I'm acclimating. And so I get to the top finally, which what feels like maybe like 3 or 4 minutes. And I feel that my entire energy body is different from normal somehow. And I look around and like everything's like super glowy and white and beautiful. And I feel like I'm still in space, that I've kind of like astral projected away from Earth into space a little bit, but everything is super bright and rainbow colored. I'm like, is this what space looks like? Is it like overflowing with energy when you're like in this state of mind? I'm like, this is crazy. And I'm like, so now what do I do? And then I hear this telepathic signature. And I hear this being, and the being is like, well, what are you trying to do here? And I turn, and I saw this like plasma tendril at the edge of my vision. And so I
oh,
turn towards where this telepathic signature is coming from. And I start getting this kind of sense of some kind of cloudy figure almost. And I'm like, I can't see you very well. What are you? And the being is like, do you want me to help you strengthen your connection? And it said it with some kind of humor. Like it knew that I was asking beings to do that. And I was like, oh my God, yes, yes. So kind of reaches towards me and I feel kind of being pulled a little bit. And I come more into this awareness of this white space. And I realize that this being that I'm kind of projected in front of is this like Olympic sized swimming pool of plasma,
Oh, wow.
of glowing plasma. Yeah. No up or down, just cloud of plasma with like these beautiful rainbowy tendrils coming out of it. Not of plasma. It seemed to be almost ribbon like or crystalline like, but like woven through the plasma almost. And so
Wow.
I'm looking at this being. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you? The being is like, well, I'm actually totally native to this area and I'm just a form of life around here. Like, totally nonchalant. I was like, well, I've never seen anything like you before. And it's like, you wouldn't. You're a human being. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So when I asked it, I was like, so where are we? And the being is like, well, Earth is just over there. Like, we're not that far away. And I'm like, but like, what's different about this place? And the being is like, well, I'm in this state of unconditional love. You're in this state of unconditional love. He's like, this is where I live. This is how I am all the time. He's like, you're a human being. You don't live in unconditional love constantly. So you've kind of shifted into this state and now you're able to perceive me. Because me and my physical beings that we are, we exist in this state all the time. And I
Oh.
was shocked by that. I was like, you can exist in a state of unconditional love constantly? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, can I be one of you? And he's like, well, you're a human being right now. Like, slow down. But he's one of my guides. I forgot to mention earlier. I call him what was it? Gummy Bear. Because
Oh,
I asked him, I was like,
nice.
what should I call you? He's like, just pick a name for me. Any name will do. And I was like, well, but there's nothing on earth like you. And he's like, just pick anything that sticks. And I was like, well, you kind of remind me of like a clear gummy bear. And he's like, then call me that. And I was like, okay, gummy bear. But he's
That's
like a
great.
super wise, super intelligent alien being. And apparently he just lives out there. His whole civilization does.
Wow. What did you have what kind of
Mm.
feelings? What was it
Mm.
like it was running through you as you were up there? Or did
I
it
was
feel
like,
just like any other astral projection?
well, it was very different because I was like suffused in all of this love and gratitude. So I
Yeah.
was kind of like more appreciative and more open and more loving than normal in this state. And so when I met him, in a sense, I was so happy to meet him because I was so happy to realize that life didn't have to be humanoid. I was so happy to see that life could exist even physically as some form of plasma. That was like blowing my mind because I didn't know that
Yeah.
plasma could be alive before this. I was like, you got to be like humanoid shaped with big eyes to be like
Right.
in space. And then all of a sudden I meet this guy. I'm like, this guy doesn't even have eyes. This guy
Yeah.
doesn't even have hands. Like he's just existing. And I
Yeah.
asked him, I was like, well, you must be like a spirit, right? He's like, no, I'm a physical creature. I'm like, well, clearly you're not physical. And he was like, I am physical. He's like, but since I'm on a different like energy vibration than humans are, I would pass right through humans, even though I can physically interact with energy that's on my vibration. I was like, wait, what? And he was like, you didn't know that? That in all of, the existence of this universe, there are different tiers. And if you're on that tier, you can interact with matter on that tier. But if you're not, you pass right through matter on that tier. I was like, what? And he was like, there's tons of matter on your planet that you can't interact with because you're on the vibration that humans are. I was like, what? And he was like, oh, you really didn't know that, huh? And I'm like, no. And he was like, well, you wouldn't know that. Like humans don't sense the other tiers of vibration. I was like, how do you know that? And he's like, well, my civilization's pretty advanced.
Yeah.
um, so I asked him, I was like, well, if you're a body, then you've got to reproduce. So how does that work? And he's like, well, when me and another cloud love each other very, very much, he's like, we get our DNA sequences out of like our protective plasma. He's like, and we kind of compare them and then we figure out what traits we want our kids to have. And so we kind of like organize those into a sequence. And then we put the plasma on it and it comes to life. And I was like, what? I was like, humans don't do anything like that. He's like, I
Wow.
know. I was like, that's so cool. And he's
That's
like,
amazing.
trust me, even in our society, there's a learning curve to being a parent and, raising children. I was like, oh, okay, so it's not easy. He's like, it's never easy. And I was like, well, so if you're a body, then you die, right? And he was like, no. And I was like, then how are you a body then? And he was like, well, see, for my type of being, we don't die of old age. He's like, we just keep aging. He's like, so in our society, when we do want to die, it's seen as kind of like a ceremonial thing where we're surrendering our physical form. And he's like, so people do die, but unless it's an accident, we kind of die when we choose to. I'm like, man, I'm so jealous. He's like, don't be jealous. Like being human is its own kind of thing, and that's beautiful. And the entire time I was conversing with this being, I was getting the
Oh,
sense that he was super intelligent, that he was
yeah.
really simplifying things for me.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to talk about Gummy Bear. Like he's such a goofball. He's such a loving, wonderful being. I told him I was like, Gummy Bear, like you need to come down to Earth and tell everyone that you exist because you're super wise and you're teaching me about the nature of the universe. And he's like, why would I do that though? And I'm like, what do you mean why? He's like, do you go to anthills and try to tell them about God? And I was like, no. He's like, you're bothering the ants if you do that. Let them be. They're happy in the state that they are in. I was like, is that what humans are to you? He's like, well, I don't look down on humans. He's like, but clearly humans aren't ready for all of this. So he's like, you as a human being, you are ready for it because you found me. You somehow found your way to me. He's like, you're ready. He's like, but I'm not going to go and bother people who don't want this, who don't need this, who are content in the experience they're having.
Yeah.
And I was like, that doesn't feel fair. And I was like, look, you got to understand. He's like, when a being is ready to evolve mentally, spiritually, whatever, they find their way to sources that allow them to do that no matter the circumstances. He's like, you could be a medieval peasant in like 17th century France. You would find your way to me or some other being or some other font of information to grow in the way that you're growing right now. And he was like, and besides, like the things that I'm teaching you, they're already on Earth in some forms. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And this was years before I heard about things like the Law of One and the Tao, which I've read some of it, I've seen some of it, which it's kind of like older versions that seem one to one from what he told me about existence and reality.
Hmm.
So I didn't even realize what he was talking about. He's like, you just found a very direct way to someone who could give you this information. He's like, but this information finds its way to people when they're ready for it. And I was like, well, okay, if you say so. Um,
If you say
but
so, Gummy
yeah,
Bear.
and when I was experiencing all this, because this is some of my first astral projection experiences, I was meeting aliens, I was meeting plasma clouds, I was meeting
Yeah, you
spirits.
were just
Like,
jumped
I
right
could
into it.
not tell anyone about this. I was like, who's gonna believe me that I met freaking Plasma McCloud genius who's like immortal? Like, no one's gonna believe me.
Yeah, so what, you just didn't bother, you just kept it, right? You just didn't
Yeah,
bother
I
trying to
just
tell
kind of
anybody.
kept it to myself.
Yeah.
When people would ask me, because I found my way to like psychedelic subreddits and like DMT subreddits, because there was some overlap I was seeing. People would be like, "Oh yeah, you meet your guides or you meet like really wise beings." I'm like, "Yeah, I have a guide, and I met some really wise beings." And I would ask him, "You ever meet any aliens?" And then someone would be like, "Oh, I met an alien once, and it was really confused. I was in a spaceship, but didn't meet anyone else that was having kind of like the quality of experience I was having or the level of focus I was able to bring into
Yeah.
interactions with other beings." So it took until I want to say maybe a year after COVID before I really started to find people who could actually understand my experiences and begin to really share the parts of it that were non-standard in a way. Because then, eventually I found the astral projection subreddit and I was like, isn't it nice when you're bored and you step out of your body and sit on a cloud somewhere? And people were like, what are you talking about? We don't just do that. I was like, oh, um, I do that. Like I'm not trying to like flex on anyone. I thought maybe there were other weirdos here.
Other advanced weirdos.
Yeah,
Have you met
yeah.
anybody on your level yet? Anybody that's yeah, on your
Kind
level?
of. I've met some really experienced channelers that are able to psychically connect to beings better than I can in a way and relay their communications in real time to people.
Hmm.
I've met some people who are really, really good with energy work, and I would say they're better than me in the sense that they can like see energy in your body and manipulate it, for your benefit and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But meeting other people who can astral project or who can telepathically sense ETs remotely is very rare. I met some people who have a degree of skill. I think I've only met like one or two other people that seem to have the degree of skill that I do. Because when I meet other astral projectors that can have like very high focused sessions where they're astral projecting, a lot of them seem to unconsciously avoid telepathic experiences or might avoid ETs altogether because it's very intense. Um, so there is that kind of aspect to it. I do think that, I haven't seen the full sample size of the internet or people who practice. It could be there's like Shaolin monks somewhere in China that are just like vibing with ETs. I can believe that. But I don't necessarily seek out humans when I'm doing that. It's very rare that I find a human that can comprehend me as much as I comprehend them. Like I once met someone who was asleep while I was astral projecting. That was also astral projecting, but he thought it was a dream. So that was pretty funny.
Oh, wow. Wait, you said you
Hmm.
met someone who's asleep in the
Hmm.
physical? That was astral
No.
or what'd you say?
Well, what happened is I was astral projecting, and this was during COVID, and I was sitting on a roof, and I was actually crying because I was super stressed out, but I didn't want my roommates to see because I lived in a small apartment. So I'd astral projected out of my body, and I was crying in my astral body on like the roof of this building. And as I'm crying, I feel like some kind of presence kind of fly through the sky nearby, and I kind of ignore it. And then it kind of swoops down and sits next to me, and I realize it's a human being. The
Huh.
human being is like, "Hey, are you okay? Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "Huh?" Like I'm like, I was shocked. I was like, "A human being? Where? When? How?" And as I like kind of pay attention to this human and look at him, I get the sense that he's asleep, that he's totally asleep, but somehow he's astral projected and he's perceiving me, and he's been flying around in the real world as this astral body while asleep. So he asked me, he's like, "Are you okay? Why are you crying on this building?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just stressed out. There's a lot going on." And he's like, "Are are you like a spirit or something?" I was like, "Well, no, I'm down there in that building. Like I live here." And I was like, "But I don't want to stress out my roommates, so I made this astral body so I can cry up here without bothering them." And he's like, "That's messed up." He was like, "You shouldn't have to hide how you're feeling." I'm like, "Well, they didn't tell me to hide it. I just don't want to cry in front of them." And he was like, "You should feel," he's like, "you should be able to cry in whatever body you have. You shouldn't have to psychically do this weird thing to cry." And he was like, "I would never tell you to do that." I was like, I appreciate that." And he seemed to think that he was like totally embodied. Like he seemed to think that he was like just able to fly around and do normal stuff. And that was his body. He didn't seem to realize some of the weirdness of what was going on. Um, But he was like, "Are you always sitting on this building? Are you always crying?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Because I could check in on you if you want." And I'm like, "That's okay." And he was like, "You just felt so sad." He was like, "I was flying around just enjoying myself, and then I felt your sadness, and I just had to come and help you feel better." And that made me so happy. I was like,
Oh,
"You're
yeah.
asleep and you should be dreaming, and you're coming here making me feel better." I was like,
That's so nice. Wait,
"Yeah."
did you ever did he live nearby? Did you ever meet that person?
I wasn't able to find who or he was or where he lived, because I was living in a really big city at that point. So I was like, tracking this dude down is gonna be hard, and I couldn't get a good idea of his face, just a vague idea. But yeah, he seemed to be totally comfortable with flying around in an astral body while asleep, and he seemed to somewhat be acclimated to the idea of aliens. Because I told him, I was like, "Look, normally I don't really interact with people in this body unless it's like an alien or something." He's like, "Oh yeah, those weirdos." I was like, "Oh, so you know about that?" But it was a very sweet, kind of short experience, and it made me realize that in any form that we take or in any way that we express ourselves, that people notice, people are there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He'll comment on this video and be like, "Hey, it was me."
Right? It'll be like, "Oh my gosh, girl who was crying on the roof, come back."
Do you so have you had much so it sounds like you haven't had much interaction then with other humans astral projecting more ETs or aliens
Yeah, not
or
too much. Like I've astral projected to my friends, because sometimes they ask me to like scan their body in my
oh
like
nice.
pew of energy, and I've done that. Like I've told some of my friends, I'm like, "Yo, like your throat chakra is like all flicked up. Like you got to
Oh
work
yeah.
on that." Some of
Because
them
you
have asked me, "Hey, can..." Oh, go ahead.
because it looks darkened or something when you look at their spirit body or no? Like what
Oh yeah,
how
like
can you tell?
I can see energy flowing through people's chakras, and I can see how it kind of flows into their body. So when I focus on someone, and this can be like across the planet, like you don't need to be in front of me for me to do this. I can just kind of go into that focus state, close my other senses, and I'll start to get this image of you in this energy form. And so I can see your chakras, how open they are or closed. I can see details of why they're closed. Like I can sense if it's like events from your past or if it's something recent or if it's
Jeez.
circumstances more than like anything that's happened to you. Like there's some people who have their chakras closed because they're fucking stressed out. Like they're not traumatized or anything. Then there are other people that they have like a really early traumatic experience or several, and they kind of those experiences, at least in the way that I see them, they kind of crystallize into these small pebbles that block the channel that the chakra moves through.
Oh,
So there's like the chakra itself functions as some kind of valve where like you need to will it open, you need to want it open for the energy to flow. And then if it's open but the energy isn't flowing well, it's because you have experiences that are unresolved that relate to that chakra, that until you go and resolve those experiences, you can't begin to express yourself in the way that the chakra is embodied to. So I've met people that have got like kind of blocks in their like crown chakra or their third eye chakra or their heart chakra. And I've seen my own, like I've worked on many of them. Um, and so in temporary ways, I can open people's chakras and get them to flow really strongly. And I've had many of my friends who asked me to do this. They're like, whoa, I feel different now. Not always. Some people don't feel it as much as others. I remember I opened someone's third eye chakra because they asked me to, and they were like, whoa, holy shit. I'm like, what? What's going on? He was like, I feel like water is pouring out of my forehead. I'm like, well, your energy is flowing. It's good that you feel something. He's like, no, like it's super intense. I'm like, it should start to feel better after a little while. Because the thing with closed chakras specifically is that when you open them for the first time, they're under pressure. So they are like shooting out energy. And since a lot of people's third eyes tend to be closed, when I open them for people, usually it's like opening like a clogged pipe and everything's just shooting out. And that can be like the way it is for like 10 minutes to an hour to sometimes days even. And then it'll finally level out and you'll get like a normal flow of energy through there.
Wow.
Um, so
Do
I've
you
done that for people.
do
Oh,
you
good.
do you offer those services to people? Is this something that you advertise online that we could that
Honestly,
or no?
I I did for a little while. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it to like a broader audience of people, not because I don't think people need it. It definitely benefits people. But because I wasn't sure how much I wanted to put myself out there with these skills, especially considering like if I make a business with my real name on it, like my siblings are gonna find out and they're gonna have so many questions.
Yeah.
It's a weird middle place for me where I know, like, realistically, I probably could pursue a business like that. And my friends have paid me for doing that sometimes. They're like, look, Snaggy, I know that you're very humble and you're just doing this because we're friends, but I'm going to give you money because this was a really good job. And other people I've been to, they weren't able to do this. I was like, well, okay, I won't say no to free money.
Yeah, I
But
was gonna
yeah,
say if you have any services or anything or a website or anything, then I could add that in the description or you could tell people about it. Um, but you know, that's up to you if you have anything like that.
for now, no, but I
Gotcha.
appreciate that. What I'd like to do more than honestly doing that for people, because I also do like aura cleaning, which is where I fix people's auras, because that can have impurities too. Um, as I just like to teach more people to do it. Because this is like all aside from the astral projection and the aliens and whatnot. But I remember a past life where I kind of did things like aura cleaning and chakra clearing as a living.
Oh,
And so honestly, I hope at some point in my life I can start to teach people that and maybe get a technique out for doing that the way that I've learned to do it. Because in the past life where I did that and I, you know, did this service for people, it was in a different place on a different planet. So it was very different from how, we might understand it as humans or how we conceptualize taking care of the energy body or syncing it with the physical body.
mm-hmm.
So in that sense, the main reason I'm on the fence is because I'm not sure exactly how to begin to bring that skill set and that awareness and that understanding of it all into human society right now. I'm trying to figure out the best angle. I'm still working
Yeah,
on some things because the skills are
that's
there. I
fair.
got the skills,
Oh, you do have the
but I don't
skills.
want to just have the skills and make money. I want to make it bigger than myself, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure be so much more value attached to that, you know, if you come at it from that angle and happiness and joy out of all of it. So that's really
Yeah.
awesome of you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, you can sign me up. I right now
Mm,
my I want to anything related
mm,
to metaphysical astral project. It'd be
mm,
awesome if I could do that. But then
mm,
also, like you're saying, energy work and anything like that, auras and chakras or whatever, I would
mm,
love to learn as well eventually. So maybe one
mm.
day you can teach me
Dude,
a little
I'd love
something.
to teach you a little bit on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like that.
Mm.
I think my biggest issue is the dedication to sit there and practice.
Yeah.
So lazy, pretty much. I mean, if we want to be real. So I think
It's good to be honest.
I need to, I need to be there on that level with the dedication
Mm.
before, before I
Mm.
try to, take or not like waste your time, or anybody else's. So, but that's super awesome of shit you and we'll hopefully, I don't know, maybe take you up on that sometime.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
but well, that is yeah, that's so amazing, all of this. And I hit the jackpot here. I got like the Michael Jordan of the metaphysical just all in one
Oh
package
my,
here. So
the
like
Michael Jordan.
or insert whatever, just like
Yeah.
all-star athlete or scientist or whatever you want to say, just into that line right there. But yeah, you obviously are on a different level, in a good way. And I
Thank
feel
you.
very honored and appreciative of you. So thank you for being here and talking. I want
Thank
to,
you.
yeah, and I'm hoping we can talk again. That would be
Oh,
amazing.
I'd be so hyped to be back.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome because I'd be hyped to have you back. Or I guess, yeah, I mean, if there's anything, I'll give you the floor here. If there's anything
Mhm.
that you want to say, whatever you want to say, just go for it.
Well, if you're curious about the latest experience I had on the sun, though you may have already read about it, I did make a post about that. It's called the day I was shown the human idea. It goes into a lot of the technical details because I wrote it out like right after it happened.
Nice.
Other than that, I just say that for anyone who's approaching the idea of like remote viewing, astral projecting, even learning like sensing auras or clairsentience or any of these psychic adjacent skills that exist, I'd say that while there are these very standard variations of the skills, like remote viewing is a good example, where people have a very strict definition of it and it's supposed to work in a very specific way, I found that in my experience and my understanding of these things, psychic abilities are kind of like what's the word? Mm, they're kind of like muscle memory in the sense that it's different for everyone. Well, someone can tell you how to hit a ball with a bat and you can imitate them perfectly and use all the same muscles. You can also hit it a variety of different ways that might even use the same amount of force to get the ball where it needs to go.
Hmm.
So in that sense, psychic abilities, they overlap in all of these different ways, even though we draw these distinct categories over, psychic abilities. And there's really no one way to do it or no one way that it works. It works a variety of ways and it manifests a variety of ways. Like through the broader, like attempting of astral projection, I've developed all of these nuanced psychic senses that I turn on and off at will through practice. And just by thinking, I want to see if I can sense this. I'm going to try to sense it and practice sensing it and see if I can get better to the point where it feels natural.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so psychic abilities in general, they're super elastic, super easy to pick up. And you just want to go into it with awareness, with an understanding that you have all this potential and it can manifest any way that you want. And probably a little bit of warding because the more sensitive you get to the non-physical, the more the non-physical gets sensitive to you. Like when people start to become psychically aware, some beings, some spirits have told me that it's kind of like we turn on like a Christmas light to them, that
Oh,
we suddenly look noticeable compared to other humans. So that's something to keep in mind as you get into it or as you start
yeah,
experiencing it.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, that's all encouraging, I think, for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. All right. Well, yeah, I think that's a wrap.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch and I got to catch up on your stories because I haven't been on this astral projection Reddit that much.
Mm,
And right before while I was waiting for you, I typed
mm,
in or I looked at your profile, I think, or something, and I
mm.
got a whole list of you've posted a lot, and I was kind of skimming
Just
through
that
just
one post. I posted it on a bunch of
oh, maybe it
related
was your com
subreddits.
okay, maybe it was comments or something like that.
Okay.
But maybe I don't know. I thought that I could maybe catch up on a lot of your comments or posts, but yeah, yeah. So we'll keep in touch and all that stuff. And yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Nick. I will see you when I see you.
Yeah, yeah. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.